We are 3 games into the 2025 season, and there's been some bad stuff. There's been some good stuff, and we have some reasons to be hopeful along the way. But I was looking at some of the statistics for this offense just the other day, and something is starting to stand out. Now, it's still very early season. And it's still very early season in a year where the Kansas City Chiefs are down 3 of their top 4 or 5 offensive options at the wide receiver position. Not even multiple positions. One single position has been hit with 3 injuries/absences that have been all season long to this point. Remember, Xavier Worthy went down, was it 3 snaps into the season? So, looking at the stats just a couple days ago, this started to stand out. Tyquan Thornton is currently on pace to have 969 yards this season. Now, this is going to change because he's not going to be the number 2 receiving threat once Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy and possibly Jalen Royals return. Okay, great. But he's on pace for nearly 1,000 yards. Hollywood Brown is on pace for 969 yards as well. Both of them have 171 receiving yards to this date. Travis Kelce is on pace for 759. Certainly not the Travis Kelce season that we are used to here in Kansas City, but that's still very good tight end territory. And Juju Smith-Schuster, if the season carried out the way that it has to this point, would be the number 4 player in terms of receiving yards for the Chiefs at 651. This offense, this far, has not looked all that great, right? We can agree on that. It's looked okay at times. It has looked like it has some pop at times, and it does look like the big plays are back for this team. They had 3 or 4 30-plus yard plays in week 1, and the pace has slowed down a little bit, but they're still popping off every once in a while for a 30, 40, 50-yard type of play, basically anywhere but the running game. And the fear, I think, has crept into Chiefs Kingdom that perhaps what we're looking at is just the same thing that we were looking at in 2024, just the same thing that we were looking at in 2023, a team that will not be able to get things going. But we talked about the pacing here. This is through 3 games. It's not, through half the season the sky is on pace to have X, Y, or Z yards. But it's still a quarter of a season. You are on pace to nearly have 2 1,000-yard receivers, a 700-yard receiver, and a 600-yard receiver. These are the stats from last year. Last year, the Chiefs' number 1 player in terms of receiving yards was Travis Kelce with 823. Number 2 fell all the way down to Xavier Worthy at 638. Then you had 2 players end the year with 437 yards, those being DeAndre Hopkins and Noah Gray. So the top 4 there, the Chiefs' number 4 receiver this season, Juju Smith-Schuster, is on pace to finish above where number 2 wide receiver Xavier Worthy was last year. Now, part of this is unfair because, Rashee Rice through 4 games had 288 yards. He was on pace to be well over about a 1,300-yard receiver there. What do we have to say about that when he is counting on this list as just 288 yards? I don't care, because these players that we're looking at right now are going to fall off as well. I don't think Tyquan Thornton ends the season with 969 yards. I would go so far as to guarantee Hollywood Brown doesn't end the season with 969 yards. And Juju Smith-Schuster, playing last year, had only 231 yards. You see him down there on that list. it is very difficult for me to believe that he will have 651 yards this season. Some of this will normalize. Some of this will regularize. But what direction will this regularize? Overall, this is likely to regularize on the positive end of things. So, while and whereas Hollywood and Juju are unlikely to finish the season with 969 and 651 yards respectively, the offense is likely to end with more yards than they are currently accumulating per game. Why? Well, the Chiefs do have several targets returning. But let's look at this for a minute. This season so far, versus man coverage, the man beater to date has been Tyquan Thornton. 35 routes run against man coverage, 7 receptions, 112 yards. That is a 28% target rate. By far, the most receiving yards for this wide receiver core versus man coverage. You have the only other two players that have made receptions versus man coverage being Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown having 39 yards against man coverage and Juju Smith-Schuster having 10. A lot of that is because Juju Smith-Schuster he's not even really older. He's just been in the league forever because he entered the league at like 21, I believe. But he is a little bit beaten up. He's not very fast, and he's not going to get open on a lot of 5-yard out routes. So, not that he has to, but you have here the number one option versus man coverage being Tyquan Thornton. Why? Well, because Mahomes is just going to let it rip. But we're going to see here, when we start to look at the zone options, a little bit of a problem that could arise. Versus zone, Tyquan Thornton falls all the way down to 65 routes, 2 receptions, and 59 receiving yards. But versus zone, Juju Smith-Schuster is a 105-yard receiver, and Marquise Brown is a 132-yard receiver, bringing in 8 and 13 receptions respectively. Now, the issue here, in my opinion, is... Now, one thing that I don't understand, Jason Brownlee down here... Oh, never mind. There we go. Okay, I figured it out. He did have a target. But I couldn't figure out where they were crediting that. Anyway, the issue here is, okay, the Chiefs have a single wide receiver who can beat man coverage. That's Tyquan Thornton. The Chiefs have 2 receivers who can beat zone coverage. So why don't we just play man and then put a zone over top of Tyquan Thornton? Right? That would seem the obvious answer here. All of a sudden, it becomes very difficult for this offense if you have man coverage on Juju, who has only 2 receptions on the year versus man coverage, and man coverage on Marquise, who has only 6 receptions for 39 yards versus man coverage. So what you would do is you would just man up across the board and then put a safety over Tyquan Thornton, effectively making it zone coverage where Tyquan Thornton only has 2 receptions. Well, the issue with that is nothing right now. Nothing right now. And if teams pick up on this, I think it's going to be very hard. But the issue is, we do have a player coming back in Rashee Rice eventually. I mean, there's a lot of time between here and now for him to be on the road. But Rashee, this from Matt Harmon about a month ago, Rashee Rice posted an 89.8 success rate versus zone coverage in his brief 2024 reception perception sample, a 99th percentile score. It would trail only 3 Antonio Brown seasons and Cooper Kupp's 2021 season in the historic database. Wish we got to see how that would play out over a full season sample, but still, being an elite zone beater is what he needs to maintain high-end volume as a receiver of his archetype. he still has below average success rate versus man, 64.5%, which is 33rd percentile, and isn't used much downfield. His growth will be critical to track this season once he's active and hopefully fully healthy. So you have here a guy in Rashee Rice coming back who is a zone beater as well, but has some success, 64.5% success rate, versus man. But you also have Xavier Worthy coming back. This is Xavier Worthy's receiving score in the playoffs last year, 93.1. And he is a guy who can be elite versus man as well. Much better, I would dare contend, than is Tyquan Thornton, who has been absolutely lights out to this point for the Chiefs, because Xavier Worthy is more slippery than Tyquan Thornton. He has more change of direction ability than Tyquan Thornton, meaning that man coverage, you can't just put a person on top of him because he can break off a route and be open 20 yards downfield the same way that he can keep running and be open 40 yards downfield. With the return of Worthy and Rice, not only do you get back players who are a player who is best at beating man. This is versus man coverage, by the way, in the playoffs, a 93.1 score versus man coverage. Not only do you get a player who is best at beating man and a player that is best at beating zone, but you get back a player who is elite at each of those things. Xavier Worthy isn't just good against man, he proved to be elite against man against the best competition in the league. Rashee Rice isn't just good at beating zone coverages. During the limited sample size that he had in 2024, he was elite to the point where they had only seen 4 other seasons in history someone pacing the way that Rashee Rice was pacing. And then we have the great mystery here. The great wild card is Jalen Royals. The emergence of Tyquan Thornton has put Jalen Royals' position on the depth chart in jeopardy. I was saying that Jalen Royals was one of the top 4 receiving threats for the Kansas City Chiefs, so the Chiefs were effectively without 3 of their top 4. I don't know about that anymore. Jalen Royals, I really think I wholeheartedly believe he is a true number 2 type wide receiver. Right now, who do you put on the bench for him coming back? The answer might be easy enough right now. You just start a rotation because the Chiefs haven't rotated very much at wide receiver through the first 3 games. So who do you put on the bench for Jalen Royals? Everybody a little bit. But once Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy come back, the question becomes a lot more difficult. If you have your full complement of wide receivers and you have 3 wide receivers on the field, well, Rashee Rice is one of them, Jalen Royals is another. Who's the third guy? Right now, you'd have to err towards Tyquan. Well, what if you want to do 4 wide? Does that 4th guy become Juju Smith-Schuster? Does that 4th guy become Hollywood Brown? Or does that 4th guy become Jalen Royals? So, yeah, I think that the answer is difficult, but the question is a good one to be able to ask because, again, last year, once you started getting past those first 2 options, we saw very quickly, if I can get what is going on here? Once you got past those first couple of options, Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy, you were down to DeAndre Hopkins, who would end the year with 437 yards. Noah Gray, 437 yards. Samaje Perine, 322. Like in your top 5, you have 2 wide receivers, and one of them was 133 years old in DeAndre Hopkins. Your number 3 wide receiver last year was Justin Watson, who ended the year with 289 yards. Your number 4 wide receiver at the end of the year was Rashee Rice, who played just 4 games. This offense is not that offense. It might take some time for things to come back. It might take some time for Patrick Mahomes to get on the same page with Tyquan Thornton on the down the field stuff. It might take some time for Travis Kelce to maybe get rumbling a little bit. Do you have any doubt in your mind that this offense will be better than last season's? Where, by the way, these Chiefs went to the Super Bowl? That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.